I work for the Grand Portage Band of Chippewa specifically to determine what is going on in our environment and how it might impact either animal health or human health. I study subsistence species that are used by the Grand Portage people for consumption. Those species have to be edible and consumable and non-toxic so that people can live off of them. We became aware that there are what are called chemicals of emerging concern in the environment a few years ago, and there were some initial studies that were done that showed these in waters and sediments. And so I was very curious about whether or not some of these chemicals are ending up in fish populations. And if you look at fish population trend graphs over time, you see that a lot of fish populations in the region are declining. So my concern was, is there some environmental phenomenon that's going on that is affecting how fish reproduce and how they succeed in the environment?
The reason I got involved with the Grand Portage study was that for several years I had been doing these studies of contaminants in our surface water around the state. And the University of Minnesota, in cooperation with the Grand Portage Band, wondered if I might become involved and bring some of that experience into their investigation of these contaminants in their surface water and their fish and their sediment.
These are things like pharmaceuticals, personal care products, synthetic hormones, things that are in all of our households. And we're trying to understand how they spill over into the environment and how we might be impacted as a result of that.
We've always encouraged in the past people to dispose of pharmaceuticals by flushing them down the toilet. When we flush things down the drain, we rely on wastewater treatment plants to take those chemicals out of the waste stream for us. And wastewater treatment plants do a great job of that. But they weren't designed to take out trace amounts of medications and some of these chemicals that we find that just flow right through. Even though they may not be considered toxic, they are designed to be biologically active, for example, in ways that we haven't studied before. So we're concerned about what kind of effect they're having on fish and wildlife and maybe people as well.
Right now, we're starting by looking at aquatic environments, looking at the levels of chemicals in the water, as well as the levels of chemicals in different subsistence fish species.
So at each of these sites, we're collecting 20 fish of 2 species that are kind of primary species that people would want to eat from those sites. We have biologists from Grand Portage, from the 1854 authority, who are helping to collect all the fish and get those fish to us in a way so that we can look at them to try and get the best data we can on those fish. From those fish that are collected, we look at each individual fish and we evaluate a number of factors which might be an indicator of fish health. What we do know about some of the contaminants is they can certainly affect growth, reproduction, development, immune function, metabolism.
Some of these contaminants, even at very low part per trillion level concentrations, we can show a dramatic effect, not only in terms of the behavior of an organism, but even in how effective they are at reproducing.
And so what we've learned from that is that there are in fact some of these pharmaceuticals and chemicals of emerging concern in our fish, and then the next steps will be to determine what those risks are to humans that consume them.
For me as a veterinarian, it makes me think about, and as a consumer, where are my pharmaceuticals going? Where are my prescription medicines going? How should I properly dispose of them?
What we hope to achieve is how that can be better managed, and that's going to be ultimately managed through either wastewater treatment or how pharmaceuticals are distributed to people. Our environment is constantly changing, usually as a result of impacts that humans have caused to it, so we need to understand what these are so that we can appropriately mitigate those effects or advise how tribal members can perpetuate their culture without adversely impacting their own health.